Hello and welcome to the WTF podcast with The Flow. My name is Stephanie Babane and I'm here to help answer all of your WTF questions when it comes to all things related to spirituality, mindset, and the metaphysical. I'll answer your what the F, who the F, where the F, when the F, why the F, and even though it doesn't start with a W, the occasional how the F questions that you might have upon entering the world of personal development and embarking on a spiritual journey. Ultimately, my hope and intention is that at the end of every single episode, you leave smiling and understanding a little bit more about yourself and how to live a happier life in the flow with this miraculous, infinitely expanding, all-loving universe that we all call home. I love you. Let's effing do this. Hello, my friend, and welcome back to the WTF podcast with The Flow. I am so grateful for you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have had a wonderful day so far, a wonderful week. And if you haven't, I am sending so much love to you. And just a loving reminder that it is not too late to turn it around. If there's anything that I want to emphasize in this podcast is that you always have the opportunity to shift the way that you see things, the way that you show up. It's not too late to shift your day and to find a reason to smile and feel joy. So without any further ado, on that note, jumping in, the topic for this episode is what the F are the mind, the body, and the soul. So this is not something that you have to embark on a spiritual journey for to know or hear. We hear this all the time, mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. But what the F are they, right? What the F are they, and how the F do they work together? What is their purpose? What do they do? So I'm going to explain this as best as I can from the point of really going into what each one is separately, and then how they each work together, how they are meant to work in harmony. I'm especially going to go into the mind a little bit, specifically because I am a coach. And so being a coach, mindset is a big part of what I do. I'm essentially a mindset coach. And mindset is a big part of the results that we receive in life. So I will go a little bit more detail into the mind. However, I will break them up each individually. I'm going to start by sharing something that I learned from a book I shared in the last episode called Conversations with God. So in that book, it basically says that the universe has created things in three. So like a trinity. I'm sure if you've heard like in religion, like the Holy Trinity. But there's threes in a lot of the existence. There's a lot of things in threes. So what I mean by that is there's basically the here, the there, and the neither here nor there. And I know right there in that moment, that's kind of like an eye twitch, like, what are you even saying? And I felt the same when I heard it. But that's essentially one example of what I'm seeing, what I mean when I say that things work in threes in the universe. So mind, body, spirit, right? That's three. And that can also be seen as the here, the there, and the here nor there. And you can think now from a more like human standpoint, if you're in a room, right? If you're standing in a room, there's the here, the there, and the space in between, right? Like I'm standing over here, you're standing over there, and then there's space in between us. So there's three. You can also think about how we describe time. We have the past, we have the present, and we have the future. Or we experience things as before, now, and after, right? So the now, the present, that's the neither here nor there. That's the empty space in between. And so what that has to do with the topic of mind, body, and spirit is going into spirit. Essentially, your spirit is the space in between, the neither here nor there, because we can't see it. This speaking in threes is something that we've pretty much done in numerous ways. So you'll hear me say often, I probably already said it a few times, is that everyone is pretty much always saying the same thing, just in a different way. So we'll say like spiritualists. Like if I have to label myself, I guess I'll call myself a spiritualist. Spiritualists will say mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul. Religionists will call it the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Psychologists will call it the superconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious. Philosophers will call it thought, word, and deed. And scientists will call it energy, matter, and ether. So we're all essentially talking about the same thing. We're just using different words. And what happens very often is that we argue for perspective, saying that one is right and one is wrong, when instead, what if we just came into agreement that we're talking about the exact same thing? We just have different perspectives on what to call it. So because I am going to claim myself as a spiritualist, and because I talk about spirituality for the sake of this podcast, I'm going to refer to it as the mind, body, and soul. That's what I'm going to say for this trinity that I'm describing, basically. Because what you'll hear very often is the mind, body, and soul are one. They're meant to be aligned. You want to align yourself, mind, body, and soul. So it's a 3-in-1 thing. And they are all meant to work in harmony. But in order to do that, it would make sense to know what they are and what their functions are. So as I already mentioned, the spirit can be considered the neither here nor there. So going back to the topic of everything is made out of energy, right? And I already said in a previous episode of Who the F Are You? I said that you are a spiritual being living in a physical body. I said that you are not a body. You have a body, and you also have a mind. So going back to everything is energy, consider spirit, which is your soul, the energy that consumes you. I also explained that we are an extension of source energy. We are an extension of the universe or God or whatever it is that you want to call it. We are an extension of that. So that is the life-giving force that fills us. So when I say you have a body and you have a mind, that's the truth of who and what you are. You'll also know it as your higher self or your most authentic self, your true you, your true you, your true self. There's many different ways that you can refer to it depending on what you've studied, depending on what resonates with you, but higher self, most authentic self, true self. These are ones that I've come to know and resonate with, and I think are pretty fitting. And so basically that is who you are. You are spirit. You are a soul, and you have a body, and you have a mind. And going back to the previous episode where I referred to the fact that as a soul, you are an extension of source energy, meaning that you are given the same abilities as source energy. Your purpose as a soul is to know yourself, to experience yourself. That's why the universe created parts of itself, created us, because it wants to seek expansion. It wants to seek fullest expression of itself through experience. And we experience through our body, through the use of our minds. If you think about spirit as energy, and you know that energy cannot be created or destroyed and only moves into different forms, that means that our soul, our spirit, has moved through different lives numerous times over and over and over again. And so I am basically implying past lives. And the reason that it does that, it's because it's just going through life over and over and over again, experiencing what it believes it needs to experience, what it needs to experience, or rather knows what it needs to experience in order to know itself. So you and I, from this perspective, have been around for quite a long time. And each and every time it is said that the spirit goes into life predetermining the challenges and obstacles and things that we need to experience, what we're going to look like, who we're going to spend time with, love, all kinds of things are decided beforehand before coming into these physical bodies. The catch is that spirit also agrees to completely forget. So that as it's living life, its purpose is to remember, to be reminded, so that it again can experience itself, to become what it wants to be, needs to be. So, and what's so cool about this perspective is that the soul is really, really patient. So when you refer to your higher self, it's always like this. I mean, it kind of says in its name, it's the one that rises above. Your soul is the kind, loving, unconditionally loving, patient, pure, just truest part of you. And it never, ever imposes itself on the mind or the body, because it knows that its destination is inevitable. It knows that there is no way it's not going to know itself. And because it knows that that is done and that there is no way around that ultimatum, that ultimate, it has no problem just sitting back and watching and waiting as we go through life, sifting and sorting. Sifting and sorting is what a teacher, Abraham Hicks, refers to that we do. We sift and sort through life, looking at what we want, looking at what we don't want, and then creating from there. That's usually the case more so if you're conscious and aware of this information, whereas most of us are kind of, just because we don't know this information, just kind of walking around in life and focusing on what we don't want and then creating more of that, etc. So because your soul knows that it's going to know itself and essentially know itself as the universe, as God, as the ultimate, it has no reason to impose itself on you. It only indicates its desire. It only ever indicates. And it indicates by guiding, by subtly guiding you where you're best meant to go for your highest good. Your soul is always seeking your highest good. It's always seeking this truth inevitably. And that can be through some really interesting experiences. Like right now, if you're listening to this, I would say it's safe to say that your soul guided you to listen to this, because this is the truth that resonates. I'm not saying that you have to accept this idea, but the truth always resonates. And that is actually a perfect segue into the mind. So now we kind of have a better understanding, I hope, of what the soul is, right? So the soul is the life force that's living inside your physical body. It is what we are, and it is what's inhabiting this physical body, and the spirit uses the mind. So let's go into now what the mind is. Okay, so the mind is also energy, and it inhabits every single cell of our body, every single cell. But for the sake of simplicity and clarity, I'm going to ask you to imagine a picture, because we actually think in pictures. So for the mind, imagine a circle, okay, a big circle. And then underneath that circle, a slightly smaller circle. And imagine a stick person if you can. This is from the Procter and Gallagher Institute, and it's a really, really profound diagram that I highly recommend if you can draw it out right now, obviously if you're not driving. So big circle on the top and small circle on the bottom. Allow the big circle on the top to represent your mind, right? So again, mind is in every single cell of the body, but for simplicity's sake, imagine that the quote unquote head is your mind. And then draw a line through the center of that circle. There are two parts to your mind that I'm going to explain to you now. The first part, so consider that the upper half, is your conscious mind. This is also referred to as your thinking mind. This is the part of your mind where ideas and knowledge and information are stored. And this part of your mind has the ability to accept or reject any idea presented to it. Then you go underneath the line. So already I'm going to tell you, imagine that this line is like the bouncer to the club, and the club is your subconscious mind. Okay? Your subconscious mind is your emotional mind. It is the part of your mind that controls the physical actions that you take. So it controls your doing. The mind uses the body. So the body is a physical instrument of the mind. The soul indicates its desire. The mind chooses from its experiences, from its alternatives, sifts and sorts, and then the body acts out of the choices of the mind. The thing that's so important to know about results is that results comes from the actions or lack of actions that you take. And the actions or lack of actions that you take are determined by your mind. Whatever you believe, so I didn't even say this, so this is important. So I mentioned that your conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject. Your subconscious mind only accepts. Your subconscious mind believes whatever you tell it. Specifically, if you say it repetitively with emotion. So remember I said it's the emotional mind. So anything that you say enough times, and especially anything emotionally impactful, anything that you get emotionally involved with, absorbs into your subconscious mind. So that can happen through repetition or a really, really big emotionally impactful incident. So that can be a traumatic event, or like it can go either way. It doesn't have to be a traumatic event. More often than not, unfortunately, it is, because those are just the usually more heavy, emotionally impactful experiences. But it can also be a really wonderful, emotionally impactful experience. And those experiences, those, whether they're repetition or one single massive one, can alter your subconscious mind dramatically. Your subconscious mind was developed when you were a child. The moment that you came out of the womb until 7 years old, all of this information. So imagine, right? So I told you to create that circle at the top of your head. Now imagine that you are taking the cap off of the circle. The conscious mind is no longer there. So you have this little open bowl. Every single thing in your environment just came pouring into your subconscious mind. Remember, it accepts everything around it. It just seeps in through repetition. So all the things that you heard from your parents, from your teachers, from your friends, from TV, from music, from the media, went into your subconscious mind. And through that repetition, through all of that, you developed thoughts and habits and beliefs about yourself and the world. And then you turned 7 and you were pretty much programmed a certain way from that point on. most of us are walking around with, they're called paradigms. Paradigms are a culmination of thoughts, beliefs, and habits that we have. So we have paradigms around all kinds of things. We have paradigms around money, paradigms around the way that we see ourselves, so many different paradigms that we have. Bob Proctor is a wonderful teacher of that. My mentor is actually Bob Proctor's #1 in the world. So I'm learning from the teacher of paradigms right now. And so most of us are walking around with subconscious programming that we developed as children. The beautiful thing about this is that once you know this information, once you really understand it, you have the ability to change your mind. And you do that through the conscious part of your mind. This can be challenging because your conscious mind has the ability to accept or reject, yes, but it's really difficult for us to accept an idea that is not in alignment with what we believe subconsciously. The best example that I can give is a person who cannot accept a compliment. So let's say I can speak to this very personally. A person does not find themselves beautiful or doesn't like their body. So, like for me, I had a very poor image of my physical body for a majority of my life. I had pretty bad body dysmorphia, and it's still something that I'm healing to this day. But that's something that I developed as a child. Subconsciously, I witnessed eating disorders in my family. I witnessed little girls my age and older talking poorly about their bodies. I've seen many women in my family speak poorly about their bodies, and never mind the media. So, it was inevitable that I developed that kind of image around myself, no matter how beautiful my body looked to the outside world. I didn't see that. And then I inevitably felt worse about it because I was like, why don't I see it? But so that's a really good example of how subconsciously I did not believe myself to be beautiful. And so when I would receive a compliment from someone about my physical appearance, I would reject with my conscious mind the idea because it didn't align with what I believed subconsciously. I could not let myself believe that. I didn't fully realize that I had the control, which I imagine most people don't, because most people don't know this information. I didn't realize I had the control or ability to accept the idea. The way that we change our subconscious mind, our subconscious beliefs, once we're aware of them, is to use our conscious mind to accept new and better ideas and create subconscious beliefs the same way that we developed them in the first place, through repetition with emotion, meaning that we have to think about what it would be like. In this example, I would have to think about what it would be like to feel beautiful and to tell myself I am beautiful with that feeling over and over and over and over again until eventually I believe it. And I would have to surround myself with other people who think that way about themselves. Your environment is so powerful. Even until you become like a master at using your conscious mind, it would behoove all of us to really, really think about what we're surrounding ourselves with, because we have information flying at us all the time through the news, through social media, so much information flying at us at all times. And because we're not aware of the fact that we can accept or reject, we're just accepting based on what we already believe about ourselves. That's why so many of us can look at social media and just feel bad about ourselves, because we see these false ideals that don't align with who we see ourselves as, and so we feel bad, and then we overcompensate, or we don't take action, or we don't feel worthy enough to pursue our goals, our dreams, and so forth. I mean, one of the things that I highly recommend to anyone experiencing anxiety, frankly, is to stop watching the news. And I'm not saying to not inform yourself when it comes to things like voting or anything that may be referring to your job or even social injustices. There are some things that, of course, we need to have an awareness about, but so many things on the news are negative. And imagine you're someone watching that every single day, exposing yourself to that negativity. You're just accepting it. What's that going to create for you subconsciously? That's going to create a belief that you're not safe, that people can't be trusted, that the world is a dangerous place. I mean, no wonder there's so much anxiety in the world when you think about what is on the news and in the media and being posted. So now that you have this awareness of having the ability to accept or reject ideas and impress your own subconscious mind, change your own mind, use that power to decide what you want to let in and what you want to let out. What music are you listening to? What TV shows are you watching? Who are you surrounding yourself with? How do they talk about themselves? How are you talking about yourself? What words are you speaking out loud that you're impressing upon your mind? And this is not easy at first because it's a programming. It's, if you think about your mind or as a computer, because another thing I want to emphasize really quickly is your mind and your brain are not the same thing. Remember, the mind is energy and you cannot see it. That's why I just created a picture for you. That's why Procter & Gallagher Institute teaches it this way, is because we think in pictures, but our mind doesn't have a picture outside of the one that I just gave you, because it's not the brain. The brain is a physical organ that lives inside of our body, but it is not our mind. And what my teacher teaches me is that there's one universal mind, coming back to the universe. And because we're extensions of it, we receive ideas and thoughts. And the only time that we are receiving negative or unkind thoughts is when we are listening to our egos, which will be another episode, or we're listening to our paradigms. Any true and loving thought aligned with your soul comes from the universe, comes from the one single mind. So coming back full circle, what is the soul? The soul is you, and it's me. It is the life-giving force that inhabits your physical body and has a mind. Your mind is the thing that chooses what you want to experience in life. And there's two parts. There's your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is your thinking mind. Your subconscious mind is your emotional mind that controls all of your actions. And your body is the physical meat suit, if you will, that acts out the choices that you have made with your mind. Your body and your mind, people always say, are one, and it's true. But your body cannot control your mind. If you change your physical state, or if you do exercise or whatever it is, yes, it will create endorphins and it will make you feel better. And in a sense, it will change your mind because, fitness, for example, if you start to do things fitness wise, for me at least, I really surprised myself at some of the things that I could do. So you can change your mind through action, but ultimately you have to decide with your mind to take that action. So your mind is always first. Your mind uses your body as an instrument. The body is an instrument of the mind. You can do so many powerful things with your mind. You can literally heal yourself with your mind. There are numerous stories of people who have defeated all kinds of injuries and illnesses and times where doctors said, you'll never walk again, because they just decided with their mind that was not going to be the idea that they accepted. They rejected that idea because it did not align with who they wanted to be. It did not align with what they wanted to create. The mind can be that powerful, but it's a discipline. That's again why it's called doing the work. This goes back to when I said you have the power to choose your thoughts. That is with your conscious mind. And then when you think more of those thoughts, you'll start attracting and creating more of those thoughts. But it takes persistence and constant repetition and getting emotionally involved with the idea in order for you to see that change. Then once you have changed your subconscious mind, it's inevitable that your actions through your physical body are going to change. And as your actions change, your results will change. That is what it means to live in harmony with mind, body, and soul. When your mind, body, and soul are aligned, no one is competing with one another. Remember, the soul will never, ever, ever impose its desires onto the mind or on the body. The body and the mind might do that. They might compete with each other, but the soul's chilling. The soul has literally eternity to just live over and over and over and over again. And it knows that it's perfect. And it knows that the journey is perfect. And it knows that all is well because it's going where it wants to go and it's meant to go no matter what. That's the soul. That's the spirit. So it's just hanging out. And it will guide as needed. It's always there. Another thing that some people call it is the inner being. Going back to Abraham Hicks, they always call it inner being. So I interchange it. I say inner being sometimes, or I say higher self or spirit. So it just depends on what resonates with you. Another trinity that came to mind that my teacher refers to it is that we live we live on three planes of existence: the spiritual, the intellect, and the physical. Spiritual is obviously spirit or soul. Intellect is the mind. Physical is the body. So I think this is a good place to leave it. I hope that, as always, this made sense to you. And I understand that this may seem far-fetched. It may be, I don't know, not something that resonates with you. Another perfect example of how this may or may not be something that you can accept at this time because it doesn't align with what you've been told or what you believe in. I am completely okay with that. For me, it's easy to accept this because I've come to study it and I've come to bear witness to the results that people have received from living a life this way. And another thing that I really liked that I'll share with you that the book Conversations with God said is, can you really imagine a better way to live? Right? If you think about a life in which we're working in harmony with these three planes of existence, and life is all about love and forgiveness and choice and empowerment and creation. I mean, personally, I think that's a really cool way to live, and I'm excited to see where this information takes me. And I know that through the right application, it would take anyone to where they want to go. It is this information that I have come to find is what I'm passionate about teaching. It's information that people have used to create what we would consider miracles in life, massive fortunes, successful relationships, happy careers, happy lives, health, healing, expansion, growth. So I am completely okay if this is not something that you can accept. I love you regardless. This is just what I am sharing from my experience. This is what I have come to know and believe is the truth, backed with other people claiming this to be the truth, people with results that I want, people with results that I'm willing to bet that you want. So it's just a matter of, are you able or willing to accept the idea and then go from there? And that just comes with time, that comes with study, that comes with a willingness. And either way, where you are on your journey is perfect and it's where you're meant to be. Either way, I'm really grateful for you being here and being so open-minded to hearing what it is that I have to share, hearing this information. And until next time, I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day, a wonderful week, that you feel a deeper understanding and connection to who and what you are, and that you find a reason in every moment to smile. I hope that you smile right now. And then if you can, do your best to help somebody else smile. I love you so, so much. Talk to you next time. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the WTF podcast. I hope that you gained all kinds of value from listening and that your WTF question was answered. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow me on Instagram at Coach Stephanie B. If you have a WTF question of your own, or you have any interest in working one-on-one with me, then feel free to send me a private message. And when it comes to your question, I'll do my best to answer it either here or privately. In the meantime, until the next episode, I'm wishing you the most wonderful day, the most wonderful week, and reminding you to smile and then see if you can make somebody else smile. Until next time.